This podcast episode is sponsored by Geekdom, San Antonio's entrepreneurship hotspot and co-working space. Whether you need one-time recurring office space or event space, Geekdom has it all. Use code SOCIALBUTTERFLY when signing up for a membership to receive $25 off of monthly memberships. Welcome back to Unapologetically Visible, the podcast for high-achieving Latina and women of color founders who are done being the best kept secret. I'm your host, Christina Olivarez, award-winning leadership and visibility coach, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of the Social Butterfly Gal and Hustle and Socialize. We are going to talk all things content creation today, all things identity crisis, because that is what I'm currently experiencing right now. I spent the last decade learning and implementing how to be seen as an expert online. That's also one of the things that I coach almost every single one of my clients on: how to position yourself as the authority and how to have the ultimate visibility so that you could be a very unapologetic, highly visible leader as you are navigating your own next chapter. But lately, my numbers have been telling a very different truth. And quite honestly, I have been admitting very, very publicly across all of my social media feeds and now here on this podcast that I feel extremely lost. And it's very humbling to be in a position like this as a visibility coach, to be rediscovering my own visibility. I've been feeling so uninspired by my business this whole entire year. And it is very frustrating at times to show up and be the expert, coach my clients when behind the scenes I am struggling. I feel that with the rise of AI, the millennial career crisis, the YAP challenge, we are seeing more ordinary folks entering content creation as a form of a career after layoffs, burnout, you name it. Just in the last year alone, we have been seeing different shifts in how content is being created and how it's being consumed. What is majorly influencing this shift is the role that AI is playing in our day-to-day lives and the longing for genuine connection with people online. It's almost as if we were longing for and shifting back into the basics of social media, which is connectivity. And I love that so much. It makes me excited because I remember how I showed up to use these platforms and how my whole entire content strategy was connectivity. And what we are seeing now is the next generation of entrepreneurs, consumers specifically, they do not give a shit if you are an expert. Oh my gosh, that is a complete mindfuck for me. Like totally, I just very confused because for years, my content worked because I knew how to teach and position an idea and communicate my authority and make it unmistakably clear why someone should hire me, why I should be the coach for you. Originally, when I first launched the Social Butterfly Gal, or SBG for short, 11 years ago, it was first a blog before it ever became my business and this company that I've been running for the longest time. At that time, I was struggling to break into the TV news industry. And when I received my last rejection from a TV station that I really wanted to work with, I decided to start a blog to keep my mind occupied, as I ended up making a decision to take an admin assistant position at a public relations firm. I started to use the Social Butterfly Gal blog to document my journey in public relations. I was blogging about all of the events that I was working on, the different clients that I was working with, and just all of the many different experiences that I was having in PR that I necessarily didn't have in college when I was studying to be a TV news reporter. And through that, through the writing and being creative and creating this persona, the Social Butterfly Gal, I discovered my passion for social media and digital marketing. And at the time, the person that I was working with in the public relations firm ended up making me her designated social media guru person for all of her clients. And that is when I started to discover the passion for social media. I started to build my personal brand around all of the different things that I was doing in social media management. And I started to share that expertise more on Instagram in particular. The thought leadership that I was building, as well as the authority content, helped me build a very respected brand. One brand that was getting opportunities such as digital publication features, speaking on stages, and even landing my TEDx talk. I was using my social media content to position my authority and my expertise in order to sell all of my different offers and my conference and the many different things that I was doing in my company. And it made me become known for something. The person who was all about supporting Latina and women of color founders, the person who was the social media expert, the one that's really great with visibility and this leadership and authority that many people still comment and provide that feedback to me when it comes to my brand. Through my social media management era, the conference era, and now the coaching era, I was able to build trust. And for years, my content worked because I knew how to teach and position an idea. Specifically, I knew how to communicate my authority and make it clear as to why you should hire me. It's what ultimately has led me to the success that I now have today. I create content on several different platforms, Instagram being my number one, Threads being my second, LinkedIn being my third, Facebook, and my podcast. You could also say that my website is a form of content creation, but there is still a blog that's not as active as I wish it was, but my website is also part of the content. But as of recent months, my content, specifically on Instagram, is not landing the way that it used to. The talk to camera videos that I have created that once built trust and generated conversation are barely reaching people. I still reach my followers, but when it comes to new audiences, the algorithm is not picking it up. My engagement is down. And I think one of the things that really frustrates me the most is social is meant to be social. And so when I create videos, it is with hopes that there is going to be that back to back, the one comment, that relationship of being social, of conversating and creating content that sparks that feedback. My views are very inconsistent, whether it's my Instagram story reach or even all of my posts. And I think that really has affected me in more ways than I'm noticing that the more polished and expert style content, the easier it seems to scroll past. And at first, I was very, very frustrated because I know the depth of my work, especially the way I coach my clients and the way that I show up for them has not changed one bit. So a couple of nights ago, I decided to ask for feedback on Threads, and it confirmed my suspicions. I received a lot of comments, and the number one thing that I was hearing from several people who took a look at my content were saying that folks are now consuming content are not necessarily looking for the expert to follow. They are looking for someone interesting enough to follow, human enough to relate to, and honest enough to let them inside the process. I think the biggest piece of feedback that I received from several colleagues that I deeply respect is that while my content is positioned as an authority and an expert, they're not feeling connected by it, that there's nothing there that provides the connectivity between all of the things that I do and every bit of pieces that I am on these apps. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. I'm so grateful that I'm open and receptive to feedback and that I can take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But I think what pisses me off in this era of content creation is, especially with AI, is this notion of feeling like you're not good enough to be relatable, like you're not good enough for your authenticity and what you're presenting because it is not packaged and able to be consumed by an algorithm. And sometimes it feels like your storytelling skills suck. And then it kind of just caused this thing of like, well, whose standards? I feel like I'm relatable. I feel like I'm authentic. I know my clients that work with me do say so. I know you that are listening have said so. So how much more do I need to be? And it causes this friction in you. And it kind of just reminds me of all of the things that I don't really like about social media, which it causes the comparison trap. It makes you feel like you're not good enough. And I feel like when I realized all that I'm losing the plot just a tiny bit. Yes, it might have been a blow to my ego, but it became very humbling because in that moment, I've realized that I've been so consumed with surviving in my life that I haven't really been positioning myself as a student, a lifelong learner that I swear that I am. I'm committed to be a learner. I am not an expert by any means. And I think that's the hardest part about being a coach and living your life on social media is that we position our own content to be consumed so that people can want to work with us. And sometimes it feels like you can't be, I don't know, perfect. Like you have to be perfect at all times because if you slip just one bit, no one's going to want to work with you. At least that's what I have always been kind of like perceived as. And maybe I'm starting to mature a little bit more with all of the life experiences that have happened to me in the last 3 years. But I really feel like my relationship with Instagram is changing and it's evolving. And I kind of do not know the type of relationship that I have with it currently and that I want to have with it. Sometimes what feels like being lost is actually you outgrowing an old version of yourself. So I'm going to listen to that very, very deeply. That is where I'm currently at this moment. I have so many identities and my identities have also shifted in the last 3 years. For one, I'm a millennial. I'm a 35-year-old human. I'm a wife of almost 9 years. I'm a CEO of 11 years. I'm a future mama in her trying to conceive era, navigating fibroids disease and fertility struggles. I'm a daughter of aging parents who have major health issues and that live 250 miles south, also an only child. I'm also a proud Tahana, a progressive, surviving the state of the world, a friend to many, a colleague, and someone's permission to take up space. So much of what I've been going through, or shall I say growing through these last 3 years, has been such a huge identity shift for me and how I show up in these platforms and how I show up in the world. 3 years ago, July 31st of 2023, my husband got laid off from his very stable job. And that shifted our whole entire household dynamic and my relationship with safety. I was thrust into my business and the revenue of that business being our main source of income and the one way to keep us afloat. So I really went into survival mode. I felt like I had these blinders on, just trying to make it day by day, making sure that we had enough money to pay for rent, that we had enough money for groceries, enough money for you name it. All while our own political world was being shifted in those last 3 years and just our lifestyle and how we live our day-to-day life. Life has gotten so expensive. But in between that time, I took some risk in my businesses. And I'm talking major financial investments, some of the biggest financial investments that I had ever made in my business because I felt like, well, what the hell? And at the time, it seemed like those investments were going to be the slingshot to the growth and the success that I thought I wanted. Those decisions, unfortunately, came with a huge cost. And those decisions ended up being some of the biggest lessons that I've had ever learned, not just about my business, but most importantly, myself. It forced me to confront my need for validation and approval and how I've spent so much of my life hungry to be seen and heard and understood in the same way that my clients do too. It forced me to confront the subconscious programming that I have around safety and money trauma, why my body feel so scared of money never returning to me. And it forced me to reckon with my relationship with my health and the future of becoming a mom. For years, I had been putting the thought of becoming a mom on the back burner. It was never a no, but it was always part of the distant future. I wanted to pour into my business and my career, and just thinking about what that next stage of my life looked like felt so foreign and felt so far ahead because we had this one life that we needed to live until the scale tipped and my priorities shifted when Pete's layoff occurred. Then come to find out that there were 6 fibroid tumors in my uterus. That did a huge number on me. Spiritually, fibroids are often interpreted as a blocked creative energy or unexpressed emotions rooted in our sacral chakra. Because the womb is considered the center of creation and intuition, the fibroid growths are often viewed as stored trauma, unresolved grief, or harboring resentment that a woman has internalized. And ongoing stress was a huge, huge piece of my life. I was always in fight or flight response, especially in the last 3 years. And the stress can really down regulate the support of your ovarian system and also the adrenal progesterone of it all. So in those moments of all of these shifts that are occurring, it was in that moment that I realized that I was not living a very sustainable life for my future and for my business. So for the past year, I made a decision to not host my conference. And I've been very vocal about that. I've had a couple of podcast episodes about my life and how I've been rebuilding my business. And that was the one thing that I was committed to. My word for 2026 is sustainability. And so the number one decision that I had to make moving into 2026 and navigating this whole year was rebuilding my business model, sort of from the ground up. Starting first with launching this podcast, which is insane to think that it's almost 1 year since I launched this podcast. I started this podcast as a creative outlet to continue to share my voice, my wisdom, and my expertise, using this podcast to go deeper in topics that were very hard for me to create short form content around, while also using this podcast as my credibility and conversion outlet for anybody who wants to work with me in my private coaching offers. I shifted my ideal client and my messaging and my positioning, focusing on honing in on how I convert clients. Where do these clients find me? What do they binge? And how do they realize that I'm the coach for them? I started to get comfortable again with networking. I actually put a pause on all networking activities as I was recovering from surgery, realizing that it took a lot of time and energy to be able to show up offline and really build those one-on-one relationships. Putting a pause on it kind of forced me to get reckoned with, who am I now that I don't have this piece of the puzzle? I had to understand how to show up offline and now show up online, which leads me to this exact moment. With content shifting and more audiences wanting less expert and more personal branding style of content, I feel extremely lost. It's the irony of a visibility coach having to rediscover her own visibility. All I know is that I have to do things differently, as I'm not happy with the results that I've gotten in my beta year of coaching. Now, my mentor tells me, several mentors have told me that I need to give myself grace. I was dealing with a lot health-wise. I was recovering from surgery, took time and energy to be able to just fulfill my cup again. And so the numbers and the revenue that I'm seeing in the beta year obviously are going to reflect all of the work that I put in. And while I am so grateful that the model is proven to be sustainable when it's got really good systems and processes running it, I am also realizing that I am not happy with the results from the revenue side and the content side. And I either have to adapt to those times or I'm going to get left behind. So for the next few weeks, I'm practicing what I am preaching. I'm letting this become an experiment in public through this podcast, through my actual content. And I want to share with you, if you might be in the same similar situation, if you are trying to figure out how do you show up authentically in a world that is dominated with algorithms and machines and AI, and you're just wondering, like, how the fuck do you do this all? I kind of wanted to share some of the things that I'm making a commitment to do these 3 things. So number 1, I'm allowing myself to get curious. I want to get curious about my life again. For so long, I didn't really have this curiosity because I just felt like I was moving through life. So I want to get curious about the things that I value, the things that make me happy, the things that make me so excited about the experiences that I'm currently having. And I also want to get curious about the people that I serve, you and my clients, what drives them, what fuels them, where do they want to make the most impact, what do they believe in, what are their values. I want to get curious about our collective experiences. So that's what I'm doing. Number one is getting curious again. Number two, I need to give myself grace, but most importantly, I need to give myself permission to have fun again. I spent a lot of time in survival mode and in scarcity mindset. And quite frankly, I know it's not serving me. I don't know why I do it. Sometimes I feel like I can't live without drama in my life, that it feels very uncomfortable to be still and for everything to be flowing, because for the last 3 years, that was not the case. So I really want to understand how to have fun again. My creativity has not been fun. I have been really struggling in that department, and it's made me pissed off and angry and just very exhausting. And so as I'm shifting at a very fast rate, I know that social media is too. And so I want to give myself grace for everything that has happened, for studying my business, my beta year, and I want to search for fun again. And number three, I need to commit to being a student again, commit myself to the lifelong learning that I always value and that I share that same sentiment with all of you. I have to be comfortable with being seen and witnessed, not as an expert, letting go of perfectionism, because a lot of the times I don't want to be seen, because I really do fear that if I am very transparent around what's going on in my life and not seen as the expert, that I'm not going to get clients because of it, that you're going to find me as a fraud and that you're not going to want to work with me. So I have to be comfortable or be uncomfortable with being comfortable of being a witness to what the mask looks like off, which is funny because social media and what we see is a highlight reel. It's a persona. Is it who we are? Right? So I want you to witness me in my entirety, but I also do know that it is a privilege and an honor to have direct access to me as a person. So it's understanding how to balance the privacy and not giving so much away, because it is truly a privilege to know me personally. I have a feeling that my next chapter is going to be my strongest, because it's actually going to be built from alignment and not this pressure to perform. And I hope you come along with me for that ride. My one ask, if you are listening right now, please send me a DM on Instagram at the social butterfly gal, answering this question. What type of content would you like to see from me moving forward? And what types of content do you love to binge that actually spark your own curiosity? Your feedback and your comments, anything that you could provide, is really going to help me in this next chapter of how I show up. I thank you again for being a part of the ride. If you resonated with this episode, here's what I want you to do next. Subscribe and leave a review, because that helps this podcast reach more women like us, women who were never meant to stay hidden, women who are meant to be highly visible leaders. Share this episode with someone you love who is struggling to figure out how they should best show up on social media, specifically Instagram right now. And DM me on Instagram at the social butterfly gal. Tell me your biggest reframe, your biggest breakthrough from today's conversation. And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, to recalibrate your personal brand, leadership, and your visibility, I would love to support you through one-on-one coaching. You can find the coaching information and offers in the links in the show notes below, or send me a DM with the word coaching, and I will personally walk you through what offers are in alignment with your current season and what it looks like to step into this next era with clarity, confidence, and unapologetic authority. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and for all of the shares and reviews. Remember this: you didn't come this far to play safe. You came here to be unapologetically visible. I'll see you next week.